Episode 9 of Winning Time, Acceptable Loss, is over, and we're here to talk about it. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net, and I lived through the 80s Showtime era.
And I'm Evan. I'm a contributor for the peachbasket.net, and I also lived through the 80s Showtime era. And you can follow me on Twitter at morehoops727.
I will say that the past few weeks it's been Evan and I. We do fully expect to see Akeem Evans and Derek Lavelle joining us tonight. Fingers crossed they did not live through the 80s era. And Evan and I have always said that, they make the show better because
Yes,
Evan
do.
and I, right, we see it a different way than they do. And I think it's that culmination that makes, this conversation special. So looking forward to seeing them jump on a little later in the show. Before we get into it, we want to thank our sponsor, Dimers.com. No more watching from the sidelines. Dimers.com gives sports fans the tools, analysis, and information they need to excel at sports betting. Dimers' mission is to bring sports fans like you together and to be a key part of your online sports betting experience. We're excited to have Dimers.com as a partner of the peachbasket.net and sponsor of our Winning Time, the Rise of the Lakers Dynasty recap and review shows. In episode 9, we see the start of the end for three key characters. The Lakers, mostly Jerry West, face a gut-wrenching decision about the future of Coach Mckinney. Dr. Buss deals with the pain of realizing that his mom will not survive her illness, and Spencer Haywood spirals out of control. Through all that, the Lakers continue to play well, earn the top spot in the Western Conference, and represent the West in the NBA Finals. A lot to unpack in episode 9. I thought it was a great episode. I enjoyed it, even though it dealt with heavy topics. Evan, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on episode 9?
Yeah, I thought it was a great episode too. It was another heavy episode, kind of like the last one, but they did a really good job, I felt, of breaking up a lot of that heaviness with comic relief.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really good, like, funny lines and a lot of laugh out loud moments that really kind of broke up that just weren't there in that last one. But I kind of understand that that one is meant to be a lot heavier, but this one was a lot more palatable, one that I would go back and watch again too. So yeah. And one of the things that really stood out to me was right at the beginning, and was Jeannie proving her worth already. And I mean, that was really a cool moment where, she's, not only getting, recommended for the job, she realizes, like, I could do this job and I could do it really good.
Right.
And like, but, she has this obstacle in the way of Jerry wants her to take care of mom. And yeah, I mean, it's, like, I really felt for her in that moment of, like, what a tough thing of, like, terrible choice to have to make, between the two of them. But also, that's also something that a lot of us men don't have to face, of, take care of someone or chase your dreams. That was what really stuck with me. And that, like, it was really cool. So it was like, it's really sad that had to happen for Jeannie, but in a way, like, if that doesn't happen, does she get where she is today? We don't know. Right. I mean, that's another little, like, coin flip turning moment.
Yeah.
So, and then, Jack fully turning on Paul was really interesting, because it's like you started to see the hints of that last episode, but on this one, he's like, like, I'll come back and coach, but Paul's got to be gone, is basically what he's saying. And yeah, and that, that was tough to see him, because he's pushing himself so hard.
Yeah.
And then, a really interesting thing was them talking about the playoffs coming up and the possibility of losing money. And it took me a second I'm like, wait. And then I'm like, oh, of course, because the playoffs were smaller then. It was only 12 teams back then. So that you lose that initial 3-game series that was there at the beginning. So yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting little piece of history there. And then, a great scene was Jerry, Jesse, and Jeannie all breaking into their old house. That was
Yeah,
that was a funny scene, and really, you really kind of get a sense of their dynamic, the three of them, and just and really how strong their bond is too. I really
right,
enjoyed that scene a lot. And then Westhead and Riley, like I'm just those two, like they make they're such an odd couple, but they go together so well. They're like a peanut butter and jelly, kind of
it's a great analogy.
exactly.
Yeah,
Just they fit so perfectly, and it's I
yeah,
mean all those scenes with them these days, like I kind of get like a little bit excited when it's the two of them because it's like
yeah,
I know something kind of fun is happening with them.
yeah,
So and you know then there were some heavy scenes too, like Kareem talking to Haywood about being cut.
yeah,
That was a tough scene,
yeah,
and like you know Haywood, expecting it all to come down from management and thinking that, Kareem's got his back, and then to finally hear that Kareem was the deciding
right,
vote,
yeah,
and just, oh, like, yeah, that was heartbreaking. I could feel for both of them in that moment of like,
yeah,
that's tough for both of them. And,
yeah,
and then it ends with the scary part about, that a lot of people may not know this, when after Haywood was cut, he was extremely bitter, and he did, try to take a hit out on Paul Westhead. At least that's, the rumor that,
wow,
and so that's kind of what was being set up there with him asking for the gun and everything like
yeah,
that. Now, obviously, nothing ever, came of it,
right,
but there was apparently some planning going on, and yeah, and glad that
wow.
that never happened, thankfully. But yeah,
See,
heavy stuff.
I saw the end, and I thought again because we've talked a lot about it in this show. Creative license, right? And Hollywood being Hollywood, and I thought there's no way that happened. There's no way. But there's a hint of truth to that, is what
Yeah,
you're saying. I didn't know
it was
that.
talked about in the book. It was talked about in the book, and
Wow.
same kind of thing of like, there's, you know, no, like, you know, there was no charges, there was no, but but it was talk, and that
Wow.
that was the talk, and the rumor was that he was trying to take a hit out on Westhead.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Drugs can
Okay.
really mess you up, man.
Wow. Yeah. No, I didn't know that. Obviously, living through it, I didn't know it. Even watching the show tonight, I didn't know it. I really thought that was just, Hollywood putting a little bit of drama into the show that really didn't need it. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Sorry,
Yeah.
little
No, that
downer
just
point there to end it on.
that changes things for me knowing that. Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, I latched onto a lot of the same things you latched onto. I really enjoyed watching the show. There were, I called out the fact that, like you did, that losing money by winning thing, where back in that day, you got to buy, and
Mhm.
a buy is a good thing, right? You can rest your players. There's a lot of value there, but for the ownership, especially ownership like Dr. Boss, who needs that money, he made the point, I lose money by winning, which I thought was pretty telling. Um, we went through the gut wrenching decision that Jerry West kind of, at least in this episode, battled through. Um, and there was that scene where Dr. Buss got the painful news that his mom likely wasn't going to survive, and he berated the doctor, called him Dr. No.
Yeah,
He goes, "You're in the house that Yes built, and you're Dr. No." I thought that was kind of cool. I'd
yeah,
never heard it referred to that way, and I don't know if that's just creative license, but the house that Yes built, I thought was kind of cool, especially knowing what we know about all of the work that Jerry West, or pardon me, Dr. Buss went through. The house that Yes built is a great nickname for what he was able to build.
absolutely.
I loved that. I thought it was interesting that you could, and you alluded to this, you could just break into houses in the 80s with nobody showing up. I thought, okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. I would have been nice to know. I had no idea. You and I talked about this before, and I thought it was such a cool scene where, Dr. Buss's mom is dying. She knows she's dying. She has a moment with Jeannie, and she tells Jeannie, "You're a good girl, Jeannie. Don't be too good." And man, I just thought that reverberated with me. I thought that was so powerful. Again, whether or not it happened, I don't know, but there was some real truth to that. As a woman, you have to work a little harder in the 80s, and I think it's still true today. And that little nugget of knowledge that was passed down, I thought was really powerful. And Sally Field, did a great job. In that particular scene. For the first time watching this show, it dawned on me, Dr. Buss had a lot of kids and they're all involved, but the focus has been on Jeannie. Where are the other kids? I no big deal. I get that the focus is on Jeannie because of where she is now, but I'm just curious, where the other kids are. And then the last two things I'll say, and then I'm happy to say Akeem is on. Yeah, we're going to bring him in to get his thoughts. On episode 9. But I'll just leave you with these last two parting thoughts. I liked seeing the Seattle Supersonics. I think that franchise has got to come back. I think the people of Seattle need that franchise back. And one of my favorite non-Laker players back in that day was a guy named Jack Sikma. He was the center for the Sonics. He had an unblockable fadeaway shot, and he was depicted here for a brief second, but it was kind of cool to see that. And then lastly, and I'm bringing Akeem after that, and this is something I could probably only get an opinion from Evan on. I don't know that Akeem would have a thought, but there was a scene where they pulled away after Jerry Buss showed up at the McKinney's house, and then they pulled away, and you saw the house, and man, it looked like the Brady Bunch house to me. I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't. And a lot of those 80s houses kind of looked the same, but it had the same kind of look. I looked at that and I said, that's the Brady Bunch house. It did. But it kind of did. It kind of looked a little like it. Mm-hmm. All right. With just an observation. I am going to share one thing. We got somebody watching, and we always appreciate it. He, like me, enjoys seeing the Sonics. I agree. Always good to see the Sonics jersey. And I hope that team comes back. I really, really, truly do. I think the NBA needs to get back to Seattle. Let's bring in Akeem. Akeem, I won't steal your thunder. I will say, and we said it before, where Evan and I actually lived through the 80s, you did not. So we always enjoy getting your thoughts on what we both thought was a pretty good episode. What was your take on episode 9, Akeem?
Well, first of all, I have seen a handful of episodes of Brady Bunch. I did watch a lot of Brady Bunch in the Wonder Years when I was younger with my mom. So I'm pretty familiar with the set. But
I'm sorry, man.
I thought it was a really great episode. I especially enjoyed a lot of the Buss family scenes. I thought who's the actress that plays the mother? It's Sally Field.
Sally Field, yeah.
I thought she was amazing in this episode. Right. And I think a lot of the focus was Jeannie trying to earn that marketing position and get that approval from her father. I thought it was kind of interesting because her father's always so direct, and her whole life she's kind of seen the way he handles his business. So she feels like whenever he wants something, he directly says it to anyone. So that's why she's kind of scared to ask about it, because she just feels like if he wanted that, he would tell me, So she's kind of gearing up to make a transition in their relationship where she can directly start asking and demanding for things, and kind of like a little change of power there, especially with the mother being gone now. She's the number one lady in his life. So there's going to be a change there in terms of the dynamic of their relationship. Um, I also thought the scenes with Jack, having issues with his brain and getting disoriented.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't even know he was going to come back like that, but I'm just curious in real life how evident that was amongst the Lakers locker room and the Lakers management. And yeah, no, I just thought the stuff about the Bus family relationship was the most interesting
Yeah.
aspect of the episode.
Yeah, let's dive into the McKinney thing a little bit because I think you bring up a good point. Obviously, he was impaired to the point that he couldn't keep the job. I do think that that decision was gut wrenching for the Lakers. I don't think there's any doubt about it. How much of that the team saw, I'm not sure. But I do know that he was let go, and I did a little research, just curiosity, in May, so really darn close to the finals, right in the midst of a series. So either really just before the playoffs or during the playoffs. And Evan, you probably speak to this a little bit better than I could, but I don't think he made that ultimatum. I don't think that the team had to see any of that. But at the end of the day, I think the Lakers made that gut-wrenching decision. He was impaired and could not proceed. I mean, is that more or less what was in the book, Evan?
Yeah. What I seem to remember was that he was trying to come back, but the only thing that was a real incident that I remember from the book was the getting lost, trying to get out of the forum.
Yeah, that
That
was rough.
really did happen, unfortunately, and that is talked about in the book as kind of that's the straw that broke the camel's back, basically, of like, yeah, if he's having trouble getting out of the facility, we've got a problem. And he was probably doing his best to hide that. And
Sure.
I think the visit with Jerry Buss, that was probably done just to kind of that's an easy way to show people what happened as opposed to tell people, you know what I mean? So like I think that was probably fabricated, but the stadium thing was definitely, that was the final straw.
Yeah, that's rough.
And did he ever go on to coach anywhere else?
Yes, actually, he coached the next year. He coached for, I believe it was Milwaukee, and he won Coach of the Year the following year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he passed away not too long ago. I was surprised to find
just
out.
2018. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he bounced back, and we started our show back at episode 1 talking about how neat it was that Jack McKinney was finally getting credit. And I don't want to lose sight of that. This episode kind of put a period at the end of the McKinney era for the Lakers, but the offense that Riley and Westhead ran that got them to the finals was his offense. Showtime, that offense was McKinney's, and I hope that nobody loses sight of that, because the dude was pretty spectacular when it came to revolutionizing offense. Great point. We do this every week. Let's do it again. Lots of great performances, I thought, in this episode. Evan, you go first. Who was your winner of episode 9, and what was your favorite scene?
And my winner, this was a pretty easy one. My winner was Sally Field as Jessie Buss.
Yeah.
I mean, she, Akeem touched on it, and yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. She was incredible. I mean, it was a great performance, and just her strength and the stuff that she went through, taking care of those kids and raising those kids, I really enjoyed her performance. And then my favorite scene, this was an easy one. It was normally, I'll sit down and kind of look at my notes and kind of pick out a favorite scene. But this one was, while I was watching it, it happened, and it was just snap of the fingers. I'm like, oh, no question, that's my favorite scene. Because it starts off with Magic practicing the junior Skyhook. And that moment in particular is just special for me, because that's probably my favorite, winning finals moment in Lakers history, all the years, because that moment was really special to me, because I remember watching that game with my dad, my dad's more of a casual basketball fan, but he's a Celtics fan. So that was really fun watching that, and Magic hitting the hook shot, and I got excited and jumped up, and then my dad looked over at me and he said, there's still some time on the clock, enough time for Bird to shoot a shot. And sure enough, there was.
Yeah.
So, I sweated out those final few seconds, and was just shaking until that ball clanged off the rim, because Bird was deadly in those final seconds.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it's that scene starts off with just that, and that was enough for me of just the junior Skyhook. But then Kareem pulls Magic aside and kind of let me show you how to do that. Criticizes his hook. That's not a Skyhook first.
Right.
Let me show you how to do that. And then just the beautiful poetic way he described it.
Yeah.
And, I personally, I used to shoot that shot on the court, and I can still shoot that shot. Not too many people do that anymore, but I love the hook shot. So that scene, I want that scene on a loop in my house somewhere.
I cannot disagree. I do think that we have to do a whole show around how a Celtics fan gave birth to and raised a Lakers fan. I'm fascinated by that. So we'll circle back to that later. Akeem, who's your winner? What you're seeing?
I agree with Evan. Sally Fields, Mrs. Bus, is definitely the winner of this episode. I just felt like she had so many strong scenes in this, from her little aside with Jeannie as Dr. Bus is passed out on the diving board, and kind of that last conversation she has with Dr. Bus before she passes. They're all just great scenes, and I felt like they did a really good job of establishing how close their Dr. Bus and Mrs. Bus relationship really was, because since she is such a young mother, a teenage mother, their gap in ages is just not that big. So I can imagine most people, if you have a teenage mother, you're probably a lot closer with her, especially as you get a little bit older, than other people would be. You have just a lot more in common. So I thought they did a good job illustrating that in the episode. And then as far as my favorite scene, I actually really liked, it was a very short scene, with the scene with Bill Sharman and Jerry West before the playoff game.
Yeah.
When he's talking about being in the Navy and how they would show him the games, and he was just thinking why. He says, "How can you not?" When he's talking about why would you care about these games? We're about to go to war. I just thought that was a sweet little moment, just about why people really love sports, because it's one of the few things that people can be really committed to as a community, and makes you feel some kind of way each day. Because a lot of people, they just go to their job, they don't feel any way about that. It doesn't bring out any real emotions in them, but then they have sports to come home to and connect with others over.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I loved that scene too.
It's a great call out. Yeah, no, that was powerful. I always call sports, the best reality TV on TV, because it's kind of what it is, at least to me. But yeah, that puts something in perspective, the way it was presented. I thought that was a phenomenal scene. All right, let me give you my winner. And I got to say, I'm kind of 3 against 1 here, in the sense that y'all both picked Jessie Bus, and I just want to call out that real talk, and we appreciate you watching. Also felt Jessie was the heart of the episode, and the favorite scene was Kareem giving into Magic at after the win, and that was the scene where he kind of whispered in his ear after he made it to the finals, you made me believe, or words to that effect. Really good scene for sure. Yeah. But all 3 of y'all picked Jessie. I'm bucking the odds here a little bit. I thought Spencer Haywood, when he was when he was told he was going to get cut, actor Wood Harris, I thought that that whole scene was powerful. Him talking about his upbringing and the pain he'd been through, and the expectations. I thought, man, I mean, I was just watching that with my jaw dropped. I just thought, the pain. I felt the pain, man. I felt that character's pain, and it was really powerful. And so to me, he wins as an actor. I think, obviously Spencer Haywood, had a rough go of it, but that scene was just super, super, super powerful. Now, in terms of my favorite scene, and I hate to piggyback, but I had the same epiphany, watching this that Evan described. Watching Magic and Kareem discuss the Skyhook, dissecting it, breaking it down, talking about how the body is the wall. They can't see your face. They don't know what you're doing. And you're alone. You're just alone. The defender doesn't matter. The whole time I watched Lakers basketball, I only saw one player literally block Kareem Skyhook. It was Dr. J, and he was called for a foul. Now, I've read that, Cap said that he had it blocked a couple of times. I never saw it. I saw a lot of guys try, but only Dr. J ever got it. And he was called for a foul, which I thought was hilarious. So that whole thing about, it's just me and the hoop. It's got nothing to do. They can't touch me. They can't defend me. I just thought, man, that was powerful. And watching Magic just soak it all up, I thought was cool. And like Evan, brought up, so eloquently, he used that Skyhook to beat the Celtics, which, knowing that just made that scene all the sweeter, man. Just all the sweeter. I just thought that was really fun to watch, really, really powerful, really well played out.
I watched like an older Lakers game the other day. It was a game Kareem had 40 points, and I guess since I didn't get to grow up watching it, I didn't realize how often he was using the Skyhook, because it was like 40 points and like 32 of them were Skyhook.
Yeah.
Like the efficiency of it was just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Evan, I'll defer to you and your memory here, but if Kareem wasn't shooting a Skyhook, he got a rebound and a putback, and he rarely dunked. He would finger roll, he'd lay up, because that's what he had to do in college. And the only other shot I remember him taking with any sort of regularity, and I'm talking maybe 10% of the time, was, a little 15-footer, mid-range. And that was just when the play broke down and he didn't have the Skyhook. Akeem, that's a great point. I would bet, 90%, 80 to maybe 80% of his shots were Skyhooks. And
that was like blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Just over and over again.
And that's the classic thing. You're defending it. It's coming. What he's going to do. He's going to swing left, shoot right. Chick Hearn used to describe it so beautifully. And there's literally nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
Nothing you can do about it. That was the wonder of it. And in later years, Kareem would wait. He wouldn't run back. So Magic and the team would run. They would try to get an easy, fast break. Kareem would wait. And if you watch games, you'll see, 10 seconds into the offensive set, you see Kareem come down, he'd get to the post, he'd get the ball, boom, Skyhook. So, that was just the way the Lakers played. Unbelievable shot, unbelievable player.
Never reproduced either. It's the best move I've ever seen in basketball, and no one else ever picked it up.
Yeah, that always amazed me too, that like nobody ever really tried it, because it's, once you practice it and you get it down, I mean, it's such a great move. Like, I've used it, like I said, I've used it in pickup games, and like, but it is one of those things that, if you have guys that are really fast, really quick defenders that can get around you, they can come around and, get that ball before you bring the arm up sometimes like that. But, the amazing thing is, like, imagine somebody today trying to come down every time down the court and do the same damn thing. What would happen to them today? They would get killed by defenders today.
Yeah. And it's an interesting conversation. I know Derek had wanted to run, to do a show around what if scenarios, and I'll throw out a what if for you. Kareem in today's NBA. Now, he's not a three-point shooter, although I think he made a couple in his career. Would he dominate today? I argue he would. because he was that special. But to Evan's point, defensive coaches, they're going to find something because he does the same thing every single time. But what an interesting conversation. Let me throw out, Real Talk here. It looks like Real Talk is in our bucket there, Evan. He remembers 89. Hook.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean that's absolutely what it was. Let's talk about this Skyhook. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too deep, but I remember when Ralph Sampson came out, Houston Rocket, great, Twin Towers.
Yes.
And that's a guy I thought, man, this is going to be the next Kareem. I know the Lakers wanted him, and it ended up never happening, but he never shot this guy hook. I thought he would be the guy to do it. When Shaq came up and he came to the Lakers, Kareem offered to teach him, and Shaq famously said, "I don't need no hook."
Yeah.
And to his credit, Shaq was right. He didn't need the hook. But yeah, why nobody, has adopted it, put it apart, made it a part of their arsenal is beyond me. And we could do a whole nother show. We'll do that show after we do the Celtics fan show.
I do think if Kareem were playing in modern times, even though most teams don't really use the post up all that much, I feel that his move is just so quick and efficient that you don't have time to drop down and double on that. So if he's hitting it at like a 55% clip, I don't see why a team wouldn't go to that all day.
Right.
Yeah.
Even like analytically, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that, in today's game, just because of defenders are just so much better these days, I think he would have to at least have, a little more in his repertoire, but I think he would succeed. But I think it would be different because I don't think he could come down and do the Skyhook every time in today's game. But I think he could adapt to, have the Skyhook as well as about 4 or 5 other moves to adapt, because he was that good. I mean, he was so athletic and so quick. And so we could talk about this for hours.
and it'd be fascinating. It really would. We'll let Real Talk have the last word on this one. No hook, best rap song.
No hook, best rap song by Shaq.
Low bar there, best rap song by Shaq. But no disagreement from me. All right, let's talk episode 10. I can't believe it's over. Next week is episode 10, last one. Evan, again, I don't know how fair this is to ask because
we're cheating.
It seems pretty obvious. But go ahead and share. What do you think's coming in episode 10, which is called The Promised Land?
Well, this would be one of the greatest finals ever played. This finals, not only did it have, Magic, starting at center in Game 6, but this finals also has one of the greatest highlights in NBA history. It's Dr. J coming in and bringing the ball up, around, and under the basket to finish it. Like, I mean, I've seen Mike do that. I've seen Kobe do that, but like no one ever did it with the grace that Doc had. Like that play, like, I mean, he looks like a dancer up there. It's just, So I'm looking forward to that. That was such an amazing finals. So
one of the better highlights of all time for sure.
Undeniably. Akeem, what do you see coming? Episode 10.
Well, I'm assuming the Lakers are going to win the championship. I think they'll end the episode with a Jabbar Magic Johnson hug. That might be like, like in Rocky at the end when he jumps in the air and they freeze frame it. It could be like one of those type of shots.
Right.
We'll probably see Jeannie kind of step up and demand that position she wants. And all of Dr. Buss's financial problems go away.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, Akeem. Something I hadn't thought of. I think when I see Promised Land, I thought, obviously we're going to show, the Lakers beating the 76ers. There's so many great moments there to really key in on. But I think Jeannie gets her Promised Land, right? She gets that job. We start to see that. So, whereas today was an acceptable loss, acceptable in quotes, for, Jesse Buss, there was a loss. Spencer Haywood, there was a loss. Coach McKinney, there was a loss. I think we're probably going to see victory, for the Lakers, victory for Jeannie, which is kind of a great way to end, something like this. You brought up Dr. J's miraculous shot. Landsberger had him blocked off. Kareem was there. Can you imagine? Landsberger was a big guy, 6'9", big dude. Kareem was Kareem. And I think to this day, Dr. J, I think when he jumped, he didn't know what he was going to do. He just figured it out in midair, which is just unbelievable to me. And the one thing I remember about that play happened, and it was spectacular, and play went on, right? Because no timeout was called, play went on, and the announcer, and I don't remember who it was, but I remember he just pounded his fist. I think it was Billy Cunningham, but I might be wrong. But he said, "This is what's wrong with the NBA. That just happened, and we can't talk about it," because they had to go and do the play-by-play. And I just remembered that all these years for whatever reason. Whereas today, with John Morant, does an in-game dunk, like he just did. We replay it, we talk about it. It's all over Twitter. Yeah. It's a thing. Back then, it kind of happened, and that was it. We didn't talk about it. There was no replays. Which obviously, thankfully, it lives on now because it was one of the most amazing shots. The one tidbit of information I will give you all: that series. The Lakers had I'm looking right now because I just want to make sure I get this right. The Lakers had 3 home games against the Sixers. They won 2, lost 1. I was at the game they lost. Yeah, it's kind of my claim to fame. My dad knew I was a fan. He bought tickets May 11th, 1980. We were in the cheap seats, but I was at the Forum at a Laker game. And saw him lose, but it's pretty much a badge of honor for me. That was that was really my start. I was a fan all season long. My dad saw that, he took me to the game, and from that point forward, forget it. It's all about basketball. Because what an amazing moment! Watching Daryl Dawkins and Dr. J and Bobby Jones, Mo Cheeks. It just embedded in my brain forever. So what do I see coming?
That Sixers team was so good.
Who was that?
I'm sorry, that Sixers team was so good.
Oh, the Sixers team was so good.
Yeah.
No, they were great. They were great, and it just makes the Lakers' victory all the more special. So Promised Land promises to be pretty special, especially if you lived through the 80s. I think getting to relive that, and even if you didn't, I think it's going to be a phenomenal episode. I cannot wait to see it. That'll do it. That's episode 9. That's our thoughts. That's our recap. Man, thanks again for watching. We really appreciate it. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to recap episode 10, Promised Land. Thanks again. We'll talk next week.
See you next week.
The voice of the fan. Drop a bounce pass, throw down the rim rocker. Lay up off the glass, right past the shot blocker. I follow through like Kobe's is money. You can cash it. For news on LA Hoops, come over to Peach Basket. Up-to-date sports, post-game reports, debates and play-by-play coming straight off the court. The voice of the fan making noise, causing havoc. Zone a man up, you can ask Peach Basket. The Peach Basket, come and tune on there. The Peach Basket, where the news begins. We're dropping news like we're in the stands.